Afternoon, everyone. It is not Wednesday and it is not 3 o'clock p.m. This is a recorded version of Women in Business. Sometimes we have a guest that's so amazing. I want to have them on the show, but they just can't make the live version work. So we do a recorded one. And that's what we're doing this time. My guest today is Barbara Douthat, and she is from Allbrands. And a little bit about her. Originally, she was a vocal performance major at LSU and was heavily involved in music and other arts growing up. So this is a person after my own heart because I sang and played instruments and I write and all that too. So she decided in 2007 that she would work full-time at the family business, not just retail on Saturdays, and she loved it. She loves to sew, mainly quilt, piece, crochet, weave, and needle felt. Recently divorced, she is now finishing her degree in marketing and ISDS to start an MBA program in the business. She's run trade show booths at various quilt festivals, including the Brother booth at the Houston International Quilt Festival since 2017, and that's a heck of a job. She is CMO and manages a group of 3, and she's implemented structural changes to help build the company. She's learned how a team is much better than trying to do everything by herself, and that communication is very important in business. Let's bring her in here. Hi. Thank you so much for being here, Barbara. I so appreciate it.
I appreciate you. And I just want to say thank you so much for having this channel. It's so inspiring and real and raw. And it's such a wonderful thing for women to know that, you know, if they have certain thoughts or feelings or are going through something in particular, that they can call on this community to uplift each other.
Well, you're my favorite guest now, so favorite guest ever, I gotta say. And well, I love your manicure, by the way. I have a thing about manicures because I don't do mine very often, but yours is awesome. So not the point of what we're here to do, but anyway. Where I want to start with all this, first of all, I didn't know Allbrands was a family business.
Yes.
So who started the business? Your parents?
Yes, my mother and father in 1976. My father had his MBA from Washington State University, and they traveled the world. And he worked for Ralston Purina, and they lived in Thailand and Korea. And when they got back to the United States, so very cultured. I'm very fortunate. When they got back to the United States, they started the business because my mother was a home economics major from LSU. So she loved sewing and still loves sewing. And he helped her with the business. He loved it so much, he didn't want to leave. And here we are today.
That's amazing. I was not aware of that. See, I've learned something new already. So let's talk for a minute, since this is new information for me. I've had other people other women on the show who are working in their family business. So you said in your bio that you kind of didn't want to work in the business and then you decided to go full. Did you always think this is going to be what I do? Or did you have a period where you were kind of, I will do anything but that? And then...
I think in my, I'm 38. Whenever I was growing up, there was a big shift in commerce where clothing is just so easy to get from Walmart or Target or any of these stores, very cheap. So sewing switched from becoming like a necessity to, and it took several years to kind of roll out into this very expressive form of art that it is today. But I know that there was always art, quilters and things like that. But I feel like it's a different dynamic from what it was in the 70s and 80s.
Very different.
Yeah. So growing up as a kid, I didn't see myself portrayed in the stores or the marketing and sewing machine industry, which I feel is changing now. There's a lot more availability for, different people with different styles to find their niche. So it didn't exactly speak to me whenever I was impressionable.
I get that. Yeah.
Now I just can't stop. It makes me happy. I love sewing and embroidery and crochet and quilting, and I even did weaving for a while, and needle felting. It's just all of the
Wow.
beautiful, amazing art that's out there is so inspiring.
Wow.
I
Well,
forgot did that answer the
sorry?
question? Did that answer the question? So, oh yeah. So no,
Yes.
I did not want to be in the family business. It was
I kind of got that, but what I think is funny is one of the things that you said, because I'm 53. So I was a kid in the 70s and 80s. I graduated from high school in 87, which, yes, I'm old. I know. But anyway, when I was growing up, the image of people that were embroidering first of all, machine embroidery was not nearly the thing it is now. Yeah. But the whole image of people who crafted or did anything like that was kind of either it was your grandma or it was, the people who were weird and they were living off the land somewhere and having quilting bees. And I think that's an interesting thing that's happened, is that you're seeing a more diverse population that are doing it.
Not just women, men.
Yeah.
And that makes me so happy. And different age groups. It's just wonderful.
Well, and especially the young boys that I'm seeing that are like painting or like quilting, or there's a man who owned Jeff Fuller from Fuller Embroidery. He watches this show frequently, and his son Adam is 10, and he's already running a hat business.
That's so cool.
And he's an amazing little entrepreneur. I want to get him on the show at some point. But there's these young kids, young women and young men, who are picking up this stuff and realizing that you can make money and be creative at the same time. And I just love that.
Also, different orientations of sexual orientation.
Yes.
There's so many TV shows out there where people are sewing runway garments, and I'm just so happy to be involved in this industry at this time. I just feel like it's, with the unfortunate pandemic, keeping people at home, like making new hobbies, and, people are more expressing themselves more these days. I feel very fortunate to have made this road that I went down.
And I think the pandemic made a huge difference in a lot of people took up crafting or embroidering or quilting or whatever it was, because they needed the occupation and they needed the stress release. They needed to do something creative.
Yeah. I think, oh man, a lot of pitfalls like that can come in your brain is because you're not doing something constructive and something that, after all of the effort, that you have something beautiful to show, and a sense of accomplishment.
So I got to ask, just because I'm curious now, what's your favorite of all the things that you do? Do you like quilting best, or crocheting, or can you not pick?
Do you ever have oh, this is so weird, but I have dreams where I go through doors and I'm like in one place and then I end up in a totally different place.
Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of have like shifts and waves of like, okay, now I'm into this. I was into like the slow process things for a long time.
Yeah.
Hand work and something that really took a lot of time and effort. And nowadays I'm really into this quilting in the hoop that's so cool and it's done in a snap. So there's a lot of different things available, and I find joy in all of them. It's just at different times I'm more.
I get that. Well, and I also think one of the things that I think is so great about people like you that are in businesses that are in the industry is you get your customer in a way that I have been very open about the fact that I do none of these things. I don't quilt, I don't embroider, I don't sew, I can't draw a straight line if you give me a ruler. I have no visual artistic ability whatsoever. but I am good at listening to people and learning from them. And I can take what I learn and educate people. But I
Yeah.
think for the businesses in the industry, the ones that are really successful, like Allbrands, are the ones that the people who work there understand their customer base because they do it. Do you think that helps you?
I think that being a woman gives me a sense of, and I know that there are men who have this too, but I think it's just, I feel very connected to other people, and I have a great sense of empathy. And anything that I do in the business, it's thinking of the end user and what are their motivations, what's their what's their axe to grind. How can I provide a service that speaks to them where they are, what they need. So I think having empathy is a really great asset for women to make decisions.
I would agree. I would agree, definitely. So I want to switch gears just a little bit because we have something in common, which is you are, I believe, currently in school.
Oh, yeah.
Right now. And I got my degrees non-traditionally. I went back later in life and finished my degrees while I was working full time. So I want to talk about that for a minute because I think this is something that happens, number one, more than we think it does. Mm-hmm. And how do you balance it? I was not good at it. I just basically had no personal life. I just went to work and I went to school and I went to work and I went to school.
Yeah. Well, that's I don't know if I can answer that question.
Okay.
But what was your major? Just curious.
I have degrees in business and marketing.
Yeah.
And that was because I'm a writer, that was marketing was like the practical application for that because I didn't really want to get a fine arts degree. Mm-hmm. And business was kind of like, if you take 2 more classes, you can get dual degrees. And I said, okay, I'll do that.
Oh, God.
So
yeah, it's definitely different from whenever I was in music, which I think I wouldn't, if I had to go back and change, I still would have pursued the music because I feel like it gave me a stage presence that I would not have had.
Oh, sure.
And what instrument did you play, by the way?
I sang, which was the talent that was actually good. I was actually good at singing. I played piano and violin really badly.
We played the exact same instruments. How about that?
Really?
Yeah. And I also played piano and violin very badly, except I played the viola, not the violin.
Well, the whole thing for me with the piano and violin is I had a very, very good friend in the years when I was playing these instruments, and she was a child prodigy and totally amazing. And so I would listen to her and go, well, I could practice for 1,000,000 years and I'm never going to be as good as she is. And so I was like, I kind of didn't give it my all, shall we say that?
So, oh my gosh. So yeah, it is very different for me. I'm actually in the beginning stages of making this shift in my life. Actually, in the past year, I've made a lot of life changes of like taking ownership of my own destiny. And I don't have to go to school. I have a job for the rest of my life, but I'm doing this to further my education so that I can be a better owner and boss and to my coworkers, employees, and customers.
Well, I like what you just said, though, because I think that's a telling thing. I don't have to do this. I'm good, but I want to be better. So I'm doing something above and beyond. And I think a lot of the women that I've talked to on this show, they have that, whatever that, I don't know what you call it, the drive or the ambition or whatever the thing is.
Yeah.
But, there's something that says, I could be fine here, but I realize that I can do more. And
Yeah.
I want to talk about that for a second, because one of the things that I hear from women sometimes is, oh, I can't go back to school, it's too hard, or oh, I'm too old, or whatever it is. I mean, I'm 53. I'm thinking about getting a master's degree, but I'm like,
Do
oh
it.
crap, I can't.
You can
I
do
got like zero time to do that.
Neither do I. Let's just go crazy together.
Well, I mean, and the only reason I honestly would do it is because there's a university center locally that a lot of the colleges in my state have, extension courses where you can get your degree and not have to go to the actual college, the college grounds, campus. That's the word I was looking for. Campus. And there's a couple of them that I'm like, oh, that would be really fun just to take those classes and get that degree, but it's not really practical. But
Well, I think I'm actually enjoying it a lot more than I thought that I would have. This semester, I'm taking a political science class.
Oh, fun.
Oh my goodness. We're relearning about the Constitution of the United States, the motivations behind that, and all of the amendments along the way that have created laws for equality in women and all races of people. And we still have a long way to go to level the playing field for everyone to have the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. But I feel like in your generation and my generation, we have made amazing steps in the right direction. And I feel like it's almost selfish that I'm taking this class, because I'm relearning, how to make a difference in the world in the right way.
Right.
But it's also,
which I think is awesome. I mean, but what I love is that even if it's not necessarily for a degree, even if it's just taking a class for, adult ed or whatever they call it, just to wrap your mind around something new, I think it helps keep you vital, number one. And it's something it's weird, but I come from a long line of teachers on both sides of my family, and I was always taught that education is something that's yours, that you get it and you take it into your brain, and what you do with it is your kind of gift to the world or humanity or whatever, I guess, which is kind of a highfalutin thing to say. But
I would be able to better answer the questions that I need to answer, make decisions that I need to make, not just for me, for the future of our community, our customers, my employees who depend on Allbrands every day. I just need to be the best that I can be for those people. That's why I'm doing it.
So there's also a little bit of the woman as caretaker in there too. I'm looking after my people.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think that women have a lot of assets because of our instinctual nature that give us kind of a leg up on, other genders. And I'm generalizing things completely here.
Don't feel bad. That happens a lot.
Or every woman. But I do feel that I have like a caretaker role. But in our company, we have a very diverse group of people that we work with. And, we have the caretaker, but we also have the hard lady. And then we have, the structured thinking man. And we work well, though, together, because we can communicate and we respect each other in the company.
Well, and I think that's honestly the best working relationships are the ones where you complement each other. And I think that's also a strength sometimes that women bring to the workplace is we know how to mesh with other people maybe a little better.
Right.
I kind of hate to say that because it sounds like, oh, men are so, they're so awful. And that's not what I mean at all. But I think women learn to collaborate better, maybe. Is
Yeah, I
that the
think
word that I
sometimes
want?
one of my pitfalls that I've experienced as a woman in business is that I try to make things right too often, or
Mm,
allow things to keep the peace, which I've
mm,
had to break myself of and learn how to um, stand up for my conviction.
mm.
So that's been a struggle for me, but I'm learning.
Well, I like that you said that because I think that's a struggle for a lot of women. We're kind of conditioned to put our needs second and kind of let's just keep the peace and we'll be the peacemakers because women are supposed to be that way. And that works in some situations, but not in all situations, I think. So it's nice to know that there are other people who have that issue because I have that issue a little bit too. I'm like the queen of the caretakers. I'm
You're like, oh, you're upset about something? Let me drop everything that I'm doing to make
yes.
you not upset about something that you caused yourself. Yeah, that's
Yes, I am the queen of the fix it people. I will make you all better even if you don't want me to.
okay. Yeah.
But I think that's partly cultural and partly how I was raised and partly my generation and but it's something that I think every woman has to navigate for herself where the boundaries are on that. And especially if you're in management, you have to
Mhm.
figure that out. So where did you start? I'm just curious now. I had a thought and now I have to ask. Um, where did you start in the company? Did you like start in a mid-range role and work your way up or
Not in an ivory tower, I can promise you
I
that.
well,
I
well,
was
I mean, it's just interesting because I think there's something to be said for figuring it out as you go.
yes. Yeah. So, actually, when I was in high school, I used to work the retail store on Saturdays so that the store manager could have a day off. And it was really a unique experience selling machines as a small person. I felt like I kind of had an advantage in some way where people were like, "Oh, she's young. This is so sweet. Okay, I'll buy a sewing machine from you."
Oh, look at this cute girl who wants to sell me a machine.
I know. Um, so I did that for a number of years, and even throughout whenever I was getting my music degree. So it was really beneficial for me to be like on the sales level because I had to learn the machines.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, I remember the first embroidery machines that came out on the market, and and the progression that the technology has made
Mhm.
since has just been monumental. But after that, when I decided not to be sing for my supper or be a music,
Mhm.
I went and worked for the company in 2007, and I was doing order processing. And then I started going to all the trade shows and meeting all of the vendors there and learning
Mhm.
about all of the people, the supply chain that we do business with. Um, and being in the order processing field, going to the supply chain field, I
Mhm.
really had a unique view of how the ins and outs of our industry.
Oh yeah, order processing is would be great from the customer service side, getting to know your customers and getting to know your suppliers. So
Yeah,
hugely valuable.
yeah. And then we had an abrupt shift in our company where it was a change in management about 8 weeks before the Houston International Quilt Festival. And then I
Ooh.
was the marketing manager, and I had 8 weeks to put the whole show together.
Oh
And I
boy.
can tell you, it was the most fearful time in my whole
Mhm.
life because I was thrust into something new. Um, I I made this shift into like emergency mode, and
Mhm.
I second guessed everything I was doing the whole time. But I think that I wanted to talk today a little bit about fear and the assets of fear.
I think
How
that's a good plan.
fear can be it can be bad, but it can also be
Mm-hmm.
good because it puts the fire under you to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
It's also the instinct of fear is what made the cavemen not be, mauled by the saber-toothed tiger. It's
Mm-hmm.
an important emotion, but we have to learn how to use that and harness it
Mm-hmm.
in a way that's beneficial to us.
I
So,
agree with that totally. Well,
yeah.
and I think there's also, like you said, you had 8 weeks to put this. And I worked for Enmart for 14 years, and I was the marketing manager, and I did trade shows up the wazoo. So I know the kind of fear I would have had I had 8 weeks to put a booth together. But I think there's also fear of failure, fear of letting people down, and that can be really motivating sometimes.
It was motivating, and
Yeah.
we doubled the sales that we did the year before. So
Oh,
I was
wow. So
so
you did good.
Yes, I did very well. But I can't take all of the credit because we have an amazing team of people that I work with. And I think everybody was happy about the shift, and we all worked together very well.
Well, that's that. I mean, like I said, I cannot imagine having to put together a trade show booth in 8 weeks. That would just make me want to hide under my desk here and not come out. But kudos to you that you guys got it done.
I think, too, a lot of it was that we called on help from other people. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times people think, okay, I'm a manager. It's all on me. I have to do it all by myself.
Sure.
But part of being an effective manager is communication with other people and
Mm-hmm.
collaboration too, because no one person can do it by themselves. It takes a whole team to make a machine work like that.
Well, and I think that's another, I don't want to say female trait because guys have it too, but I think that's something that women maybe are more prone to is I have to take care of everything and I have to make sure it all goes smoothly. And and we all have to remember that unless you're running a business by yourself, you're on a team. You have other people. And I think sometimes, I don't know, maybe this is a me thing, but I've had other women say this too, that it's hard to admit that you need help or to ask for help because it feels very vulnerable to do that.
Yeah,
So,
yes, I can definitely sense that. Um,
yeah.
I'm also taking a management course, and we're learning about synergy,
There you go.
which is a great concept. 2 plus 2 equals 5. And
Yeah.
having a good team is just, I think, the most important thing that a manager can do is to have the emotional intelligence to communicate with your team,
Hmm.
and have them emotionally on your side, working together for the benefit of the company.
Well, that, and I think what you were just talking about, the synergy that happens when you find people that have skills that complement yours, but they have brains that are sort of like yours, so you can understand what the other is trying to do. I
Mhm.
have that with the one of the people that I'm working with right now, and it's like the best thing ever because I have worked with people in the past, should say, that didn't necessarily get how I worked, and I mean literally like how my brain worked and then how I like to work, my process, and it's harder, I think.
Yeah, I think that too. Another thing that men and women do in management is it's called ingelitance. And it's when you feel threatened by someone that you hire underneath you that has a skill set
Mm,
greater than yours. And I have made the biggest strides in the company hiring people that I didn't
mm,
necessarily know how to communicate with them on their level because their skill set was just greater than mine, but I wasn't afraid to be humble enough to allow them to do what they do best.
Well, and I think honestly, I've encountered that in my career too. And what always makes me sad is that what happens a lot of times is the person who actually has this amazing skill set either tones it down to fit in or goes somewhere else because they don't feel like what they have to offer is valued, and you lose out on what potentially could be an amazing employee because you're nervous that they're going to show you up maybe or whatever. I mean,
show me up. I want all
yeah.
Show me up.
Well, that's what I always feel too. I'm like, if you got it, bring it, because I'm good with it. And if you can make if you can make whatever we're doing better or faster or more profitable, please bring it. I don't need to be the be all and end all of anything I'm doing, except for, well, not even the show really, but I mean, there are better people doing this kind of stuff than me. I understand that, but I don't know. My personal theory has always been that sort of thing, and I love the word that you used for it. That was a great word. I had not heard that word before. And I can't say it again, but
what was it? Ingelitance?
Ingelitance. Thank you. I'm going to stick that in my memory bank now. So, but I think a lot of the ingelitance, I need to use it a couple times so I can get it, comes from insecurity.
Yes.
People are scared that they're going to be showing up, or they're going to be less relevant or whatever it is. And I don't understand that, because everybody has their own strengths and their own weaknesses. So
exactly. And I feel like a lot of times some of our pitfalls as women, like everyone has an axe to grind. That means everyone has an internal motivation to why they think the way they do. Maybe if they're telling themselves negative things, the way that they react to you when you say something may come off as a certain way, just because of their own perception that they're living in, I guess.
Sure.
And oftentimes when people react to you, it's 90% of the time it has to do with their own internal motivations and not what you actually did to them or said to them. Is their perception of that. And I think that it's important for managers to have the emotional intelligence to see when things like that are happening, understand why people react the way that they do. What are their needs? What are they missing? And things like that. But I forgot where I was going.
Well, I think what happens a lot of times is that people get caught up in what's my place in this configuration, and they start worrying that maybe they won't have one anymore. And it's like, nobody, and usually the person that they're afraid of or insecure about is just trying to be the best that they can be. So it's not, I mean, okay, granted, there are the All About Eve situations where, somebody's trying to stick a knife in your back, but those are probably rarer than most people think they are.
Yeah.
I would think.
I think that showing people positivity is important. Like before this, I was just thinking about, like, what are we going to talk about? Like, do you remember on TV when, like, Joan Rivers was on there judging every runway outfit that would go across?
I never watched it, but I was aware of it.
Well, I was thinking that too. Like, why did we as a society give that credibility instead of actually saying, look at this actress, look at the achievements that she's accomplished. Look at her strengths that she has. Why use your energy and effort to tear someone down? And I feel like women who are insecure do that to other women, but women who are experience love in their heart and confidence, and they're not in their head, they're in their heart, can better speak to women that's in an empowering way, which is why I really appreciate what you do.
Well, one of the things I have to say that this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. So I want to talk about it for a minute because that's been kind of a theme in my career a little bit is I've worked for male bosses, and to a boss, the men think I'm great. The women have a tendency to you're overbearing, or you want too much, or you're pushy, or you're intimidating, or I could give you a list of adjectives. And I never understood that because people would say to me, "Oh, you're working for a female boss. That must be so great." And I was like, "Yeah, not as much as you would think." And I don't know if that's a cultural thing that women are conditioned to compete, or that we only think that we kind of have gotten in our head somehow that there's only room for so many women in any particular configuration.
The competition in women needs to stop because we're all beautiful. We're all smart. We're all great just the way that we are. And we have amazing assets that we need to take evaluation of and use those to our strengths.
And I think that I don't know if you're aware of the group that I run on Facebook, the Women in Garment Decoration group. But that has been an amazing place to see women come together and really support each other and help each other. And we need to have more of that and less of the judging and the criticizing and the being insecure about if she has this, then I can't have it, or whatever it is. And I guess the question, and I understand this is a much bigger question than we can cover in the time we have left here, but is the way to fix that just to have conversations like these?
I think it's a start. I think communication is really important. And I think sometimes when you feel uncomfortable about a topic is when you need to explore it more.
Yes.
I think it's never hurtful to talk things out and to be on the same playing field. But I think that in women supporting women, I feel like you can't just say like, "Oh, I'm a woman, so I'm marginalized in certain situations, so I need better opportunities than other people." People need to like see women and men and all sexual orientations and all genders on the same playing field. I think that as women, we can, kind of identify certain, generalities that we have, but all women and all men are different, but we do have a long way to go to level the playing field.
I agree. And that's one of the things that I think is so important, is to have conversations about these issues, because that's part of why this show came into being, was because there wasn't discussion happening.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not hugely fun, I gotta say, but
sometimes it's uncomfortable. I was thinking, we did recently a marketing plan, and in a marketing plan, you always, you lay out your strengths, your weaknesses. It's the SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats.
Yeah.
And I think every woman should take the time to, write down on a piece of paper, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are my opportunities and threats?
I love that, because I think
evaluate yourself.
Yeah. And I think and I'll freely admit, I'm 53. I'm just starting to figure out who I am, really. I spent a lot of time, and anybody who's seen this show previously knows some of my history, and I'm not going into that here, but I spent a lot of time being a person I didn't really like, and it's taken me a long time to get to the person that's here doing this with you, you know? And I like this person. I probably like this person better than any other version of me that there's ever been. But the caveat to that is there was a lot of hard work and a lot of realizing where I had attitudes or ideas that needed to be fixed and then doing the work to fix them. And I think that's something that sometimes, like you said, women get fixated on the we're marginalized, we don't have a shot, we don't get a chance, and kind of get stuck there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I think what we need to focus on is more what you said. How do we level the playing field? How do we have the conversations that help us start dealing with some of this stuff that we need to deal with? So I love that. I totally do. But speaking of other things that I want to cover, because we're getting close to the end here and I don't want to miss this one, I want to talk about self-esteem and your sense of self. And I think I kind of led into that when I said there have been many iterations of me over the years, and I like this one best. So let me start with this. What did your parents tell you when you were growing up about what you could be or what the possibilities for you were? Or what women did? I mean, your mother obviously was part of the founding of the business. So did you always just assume that women could make a business if they wanted to, or?
I'm very fortunate to have grown up in a very supportive household where equality was a really important issue growing up. So I could say that I was very supported in that way. And I'm very grateful for that. Outside of family though, like I was in dance and gymnastics and beauty contests growing up as a little girl. That kind of messed me up a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, just because of the motivations behind, expectations of someone of that age was difficult to navigate. But I'm kind of like, I was always didn't like authority and all that kind of stuff. I like to do things differently. I was kind of bad, I didn't always do what I was told. So I was able to, in my mind, shun that as beneath me.
Well, I knew I liked you because the best people question authority. I firmly believe that the best people are always
as a manager, you have to too appreciate people that question you.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate it when an employee comes to me and is like, I really don't like this decision that you made. And I'm like, thank you. Please tell me why, because I'm not a perfect person, but I love getting feedback from people, even if it's hard to hear.
Well, and I think honestly, the people that will come to you and say, I don't get this, or I don't know that I agree with this, or maybe we should do it this way, those are the people that I want on my team, because those are the brave people. I don't want the people who are like, oh yes, everything you think is perfect and wonderful.
I will do everything you say, even if it's wrong.
Yes, because that's, you hire someone for their skill set and their brain and their intelligence. And if you're not going to get all of that, and I think that's another thing that women sometimes fall into is women are yes men sometimes, because we don't want to rock the boat and we don't, or they're not used to speaking up, or they speak up and nobody listens, which don't get me started on that one. Well, I mean, I think every woman probably has a story of being in a meeting or in a room somewhere and, proposing an idea or bringing up a concern or a comment and just completely being, ignored or overlooked. So
I think when that happens, it's from a manager that's running on intelligence, that
Yeah.
feels threatened by another point of view. I always want people to tell me, if they have an opposing view, and it's better that way.
I totally agree with you. So you grew up in a supportive household where equality was important, and you saw your parents modeling the behavior of my mother worked too, and when I was growing up, that was much more rare. I think she was one of the few mothers in the neighborhood that actually had a job and went and was gone. And I always, from a very young age, thought, well, okay, I'm going to work. I never really had any, honestly, never really had any ambition to be a mom, to have kids or anything like that. I was like, I want to have a career.
That's the crossroads where I'm at now, Christine. So what did you end up doing?
I ended up having a career. And part of that was because I never met the person that I wanted to be with enough to have a family. Part of it was health issues that would have made having a family a little problematic. But I just really, and honestly, personal relationships were an area that I was a little messed up in sometimes. So, career was easier. I was more confident in that end of me. How about that?
Yeah, that's the decision that I'm making now. So I'm working full time. I'm actually part time. I'm working, and then I'm going to school full time. And I'm trying to take little moments here and there to find my center, and like go on little excursions. But at this time in my life, I don't think that like having a baby is in my list of things to do. So I've been weighing that option, and I wanted to before adopt a child, and so I'm going to explore that after I finish school and all of that. So,
well, that's a whole. What the funny thing is a bit is that it seems like the traditional path is you grow up, you get married, you have a baby. And I was like, yeah, I don't want any of that.
yeah, we got to be rebels.
Yeah. And I had people all through my 20s and 30s who were saying, "Oh, you'll meet the right man and you'll decide you want kids." And I was like, even if I met the right man, I still don't think I want kids. I just don't. That's not.
Yeah.
And that was very weird for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think that people too tell you what you think, what they what's what I was trying to say. People say what they think you want to hear. And that's in line with what's the social norm. Or was the cultural norm, in previous years. I think it's making a little bit of a shift, but
It is.
I think that their intentions are good when people say things like that. But it's just because you don't go down that path doesn't mean that you're that your strengths are compromised in any way.
Well, I think it just is people, it's kind of a cultural thing. I think people just make the assumption, oh, you're female, you must want to have a baby. And I'm like, you know what? I don't even want a dog, much less a child. I mean,
so right now I'm muting my mic because my dog's making noise. Maybe I don't want one right now either. I'm just joking. I love him to that. But yeah.
Well, it just actually don't worry about the dog. We've had people's cats on, people's kids on, whatever. We're good. We don't have a problem with it. But I think the thing that is interesting to me about this conversation is that there was a time in history when there would have been no discussion of, you would have had kids, you would have gotten married, because that was the only choice that you had. We have a lot more choices now, which I think is great, but it's also weird that the culture hasn't quite caught up with the choices yet.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think? I don't know. And I also think it's weird that you get judged either way if you're female. If you have kids, then you kind of get, well, what about your career? Or are your kids getting shortchanged because you're working so much, or whatever it is? And if you don't have kids, you get, well, how come you're selfish and you didn't have kids?
Yeah. I think everyone has their own path in life.
I agree.
I wouldn't take away any of the hardships that I've had in my past, like, because I feel like it's made me a stronger person now. But you have to choose what your path is, and everyone's going to have different pitfalls and different, things that happen to them, which is why I appreciate, like, one of your videos that you did recently, solo videos, where you talked about confidence. And I just felt like there were a lot of points that I could identify with in that video. And a lot of times women feel like I'm the only person that feels like this, because women don't talk about the real issues that they have in life. They don't get raw, and so it's like you kind of feel like you're on an island when bad things happen to you. But you're not. Like, we're here.
We're all here together.
The same, or some people have had similar life experiences as others, and I think that should be celebrated, that we can identify and connect and support.
I agree
through that.
Well, and one of the things that for me has been so amazing about doing this show is the women like you who have come on and been real and honest about the things that scare you and the things that make you happy and the things you think you're not doing that well. And, there's a lot of, the more we talk about this stuff and the more we get to see that people that we look at and go, oh, she must have it all together, she's got it easy, and then you realize that maybe it's not as easy as we think it is. And maybe there's more similarities than we think.
Yeah. My father, he's the king of quotes, but he always told me when I was a kid, and even today, life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it. So, like, if something happens, take a moment, assess the situation and make decisions that uplift yourself and get you to the place where you want to be.
I totally agree with that. I think that was one of the best things I ever learned, was how to take responsibility for things and how to react appropriately to situations. Because, it's, when you've had a rough childhood, there's a lot of impetus sometimes to assume that you've gotten a raw deal and everything's horrible and, all that. And you have to learn not to do that. So
some of the people that I've drawn support, like the strongest support from in my life, are people that have had the biggest hardships, because they've learned how to overcome that. And, it just communicating with folks like you and the other people that I know in my life that have been through horrendous childhoods, really have helped me on my journey.
Well, I think honestly, and I'm not by any means characterizing my childhood as the worst one ever. I mean, I know there were people who had it a lot tougher than I did, but going through the stuff that I went through, you have two choices. You either let it motivate you to put good in the world, or you get bitter about it. Yeah. And I didn't want to be bitter. And it took me a while to figure that out. But, I think you have a choice. You always have a choice, no matter when you go through anything, no matter what the situation is. You have a choice with what you take away from that and how you handle it going forward. So yeah, that's my word of wisdom for the day.
I love it. Wonderful.
Well, I really hate to draw a line under this, but we're almost at an hour. And I know if I start another topic, we're probably going to go way longer. And I've already taken up enough of your time. So, Allbrands is the company.
Allbrands.com.
And
Yes.
allbrands.com, which if I had been more on the ball, I would have put a banner in. So I may have to go back and do that later. But I thank you so much for being here with me today. It was a great conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time. And hopefully we'll get to meet in person someday.
Yay. I hope it was helpful. Thank you for
Oh, it really was. Thank you so much. I'm going to hit end broadcast now, or like I said, we'll go for another 15 minutes and that'll just not be good. So thank you.